This is my first podcast too.
Oh, it is?
Yeah,
Oh, that's
so
fun.
I feel honored.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
good.
yeah.
No, hopefully, I know sometimes, like, even when I've been on other podcasts to like be invited, I'm like, oh God, then I get anxious. So I hope, like, usually it takes like a minute or two and then you're
To
in it
get
and then you're
comfortable.
good. Yeah.
Well, I did a lot of stuff in college. I was a Butler student ambassador, so I give a lot
Hmm.
of tours. It was on like a
Ah,
lot of student panels,
yeah.
and I was alright. So I'm used to like talking in front of people. It's just like I've had dreams about being on podcasts, and I've never been able to be on one yet. So that's
Ah.
why I was like, yes, thanks,
That's so
Mariah.
fun.
Yeah,
Okay, okay. That's
yeah,
fun. That's a cute little intro. So I'm
yeah,
glad we got that recorded.
yeah, yeah,
But yeah, so we can go ahead and get it started.
yeah.
Learn to listen. Today we are joined by Colton. Super excited to have you here. You are a former Orr Fellow, so we met
Mhm.
through the Orr Fellowship program. Learn to listen audience, you know that we've had Orr Fellows, current and alumni on the podcast before, so excited to join you in that club. But you also have a couple of your own endeavors, side hustles, side gigs that we're going to get into a little bit later. But I'd love for you just to kick us off, introduce yourself, kind of give a little bit of your background story.
Yeah. Uh, Hello everybody. Colton Haymon. I think Mariah gave a pretty good professional backstory. But to go a bit more personal, grew up in Chicago area. Parents were split, so I moved around a lot growing up. Um, Went to high school my junior and senior year downtown Chicago. One of my college advisors had a good friend in the admissions office at Butler University,
Okay.
told me to go visit,
Right.
and I'm like, all right.
Sure, why not?
No, right. I visited Butler and I fell in love with the campus right away.
Mm,
Um at Butler I studied international business and marketing, and I chose that major because my mom was an entrepreneur. She
mm,
started her own business. So mom was pediatrics. She's an occupational therapist.
awesome.
Um Dad was a federal agent. He was a Marine
Wow.
parole officer.
Yeah.
So I kind of got both ends of the spectrum growing up. You know
Okay,
what I'm
that's
saying?
fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and kind of, I guess it takes a step back too. Like when I was growing up, I always felt like I struggled to fit in a lot growing up because I was
Okay.
like always um, like an outsider in some degree. Whether it was so when I was growing up, I either was in the smart classes and I was like the only one that looked like me,
Mm-hmm.
or I talked different than everybody else I played sports with. And so I kind of just felt kind of ostracized growing up. So when I came to Butler, it was my first time being able to make a name for myself,
Mm-hmm.
like for me.
Ah.
Yeah, I guess growing up, I moved around so much. I was a new kid all the time.
And
You
that
know,
label
you
like
know what I'm
was
trying to
kind of
say?
put on you.
Facts.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I never had like my friend group I could like stick with. I got to
Mm.
Butler, came to Indy, and that's really when I got to get my groove actually.
Mm.
So Butler was fun. I did a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah.
I got into the fellowship just because I knew a lot of people inside of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's how I landed at Lev in the Salesforce ecosystem. I'm a solution architect. And then COVID hit, and me and my older sister started ColMonet, which is a personal care products business. Super excited about that. We can get to that later, like you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And then got my first property around that same period too.
Right.
So
A lot to dive
that
into
was a lot.
there. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
that
it's
was a
good. It's
lot.
good.
I'm
We'll break
sorry.
it down.
Yeah,
No, no,
yeah,
no, that's
yeah,
perfect.
yeah.
Okay, so quick questions. What about Butler really intrigued you? Because I had a similar feeling with Notre Dame. Like once
Really?
I was on campus, I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this really fits. And then I just had to go home, digest it for a bit, and like talk to my people. And then they're like, it matches for you.
Right.
So what about like the campus? Because like I always try and explain, like for me, it was like a feeling. Like
It's a
the
feeling.
people I met, it was just
Yeah.
like I was like, I can see myself walking around on campus and like being on the rowing team there. And so I was it kind of a similar vibe for you.
Yeah, I would say so. So I'm a Christian, right? So like, uh, I'm pretty spiritual in how I feel things.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was walking around on campus, it was a one-on-one tour with a black woman,
Mm-hmm.
and she was the only tour guide of color. and it just so happened she didn't have anybody else to tour. So me and my
Wow.
mom went to go tour with her. So we got like an exclusive, like intimate tour of the whole campus.
That's
Got to
awesome.
ask all my questions. Um, and I think because I got to ask all my questions and I was walking around, it was more so like a spiritual feeling for me, like this is where you'll be successful.
Mm.
And I'm pretty heavy in my conscience. So like when I went once I had my mind made up, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go here.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. That's
Does
really
that make
cool.
sense?
Yeah, yeah, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah,
That's really cool that you got to have the only Black female tour guide at Butler at the time.
literally.
And you said you also gave tours.
Yeah, I did.
Was
Yeah,
that like part of the reason that you,
100%,
yeah,
hundred
wanted to
percent.
give back? Okay.
That's funny.
That's
Yeah,
really
that's
cool.
exactly why. Yeah, yeah,
That's why I love podcasting because
yeah,
I can just make connections and
yeah. You're
assumptions whenever I
100% right.
want
Yeah,
and see if they're right. Okay, so then you said also that your mother is an entrepreneur. So what did she found?
she founded Smart Moves Pediatrics, so pediatric clinic in Chicago area.
Okay. Okay,
So
cool.
like speech therapy,
Freaking
physical
awesome.
therapy, occupational therapy. She has like therapists that work under her,
Mm-hmm.
and they do outpatient and inpatient. So they come to the clinic and then they go to the homes as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, awesome. I was looking into OT for a little bit,
Yeah,
so
I
I was
remember you saying
curious.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I was curious what
yeah.
she like how her entrepreneurial spirit fed into
Hmm.
um that field. Okay, so now I'm glad that you said and you kind of took it back to like personal life and like growing up, having moved around a lot because I was opposite. So grew up in a very small town and never moved, like the same
Really?
house.
Yeah.
The only time I didn't live in our house was when we were getting it renovated and that took like a year and we literally were renting out a house down the street. Like I walked my closet, like my room over. So it was very close. Um so I'm always kind of intrigued by people who move around a lot or like are known as the new kid because it's just something like a different experience than
Yeah.
I had.
Yeah.
So what do you think like how do you think that experience as a kid has kind of like manifested itself in your adult life? Because I'm a big believer in like how you grew up shows like nature versus nurture. I know like you're nodding your head like I know you agree with me and that's why we're
Yeah.
going down this road.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like for me my assumption or my guess would be that you're very comfortable in like new environments because, and I didn't know this about you before this chat, but I've just seen it from the past 2 year or the past year in or fellowship. Like you go into a room and you're just like comfortable meeting new people. So do you
Mhm.
think that's because you had to do that as a kid?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think what it was is it fast tracked my development to me being comfortable in my own skin.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, because at first I would try to fit in
Yeah.
growing up.
Yeah, every kid I feel like is
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that's like the strife.
You know,
Yeah.
and it was a lot of pressure because I didn't fit in anywhere anyway,
Mm-hmm.
and I was new.
Yeah.
So it was like it was a double punch to the stomach.
Yeah.
So now I've become comfortable being different, but also different when I don't know anybody. So there's
Mm.
like different in a group of people you know, then there's different and you don't even know them yet.
Mm.
It's like a different level of like discomfort. So
Right.
I guess I'm comfortable on both. So it's a lot easier for me to connect with people actually.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think it's less about being comfortable in those positions. It's more so I can quickly identify who my people are.
Yeah, right. Is that like you identifying your people? Is that like a gut feeling, or is it just like how well you vibe together, or like things you learn about them? What if you do you think you could like pinpoint? Because for me, I feel like it's like an interaction is what I can guesstimate that it's like maybe I'll get along with someone or like I vibe with them because of this.
Mm,
It's okay if you don't know too.
no, that's a fantastic question. I think it's a little bit of everything you said
Mm-hmm.
because I've made mistakes of judging people too quickly
Mm,
and assuming because of what I've been through and that person matches what I've been through or who I've met like them, they're like that
mm.
person.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so I like judge them too quickly. And then I'll
Mm,
later but okay, they were actually pretty cool. They might have had a bad day,
um,
or I might have read that wrong. So it's not necessarily a particular moment, but if I'm able to be exposed to that person for a while, I just read them and pay attention.
Mm.
Certain people, it is like an instant click, like, oh, this is good.
Yeah.
And then some people, I'm like, I gotta feel this out a little bit more,
Yeah.
you
Suss
know?
them out and like
Yeah,
see.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I too, like, I feel like most, and this is my fascination of psychology, like
Yeah,
coming to the surface,
for
but I feel
sure.
like most kids, there's some identifier or some reason that they found when they were younger that they had or they felt that they were not able to relate to someone because
Mm,
of some reason or another.
mm,
And so I feel like for me, it was just this worry that like, oh, because I was like not um able to like stand out in a crowd, that's what I was more nervous about.
really?
Yeah, because I feel like I had all these friends that definitely were able to like one friend had like soccer and that was her thing. The other had basketball and that was her thing. And then the other two had like dance. And so for me, I was like, oh, like what is my thing? Like I didn't have like that identifier that I was searching for. And I found it like later with rowing. And so I like definitely thought that because I was like, oh, like I feel like I was insecure about blending in too much and like being too plain. And that's why I was like, oh, like that was like I remember growing up, like my not like claim to fame, but that was my struggle. It was like, oh, I blend in with the wall too much.
Yeah,
And so then it definitely manifested because I was like, okay, if I can't stand out for like something I'm doing, then I'm going to be super like kind and likable to people. And so that's why like I feel like my personality has definitely manifested itself in that way. And then it's like, oh, I know I can like get along with anyone that I like put the effort into.
mm,
But it's interesting to hear you kind of talk about how you feel like you were an outsider because you were like weren't on the in group for various reasons, which I want to get into, but that kind of maybe that like manifested itself in a way that you're quick to assume things because you can like recognize those patterns.
right, right. That was good. That's
You
interesting. No, for
want to
sure.
sit with that for a second?
Yeah. What would you say that thing is that makes you unique then? Because
Mm-hmm.
because hearing you say that, you stand out to me.
Mm, thanks, Colton. Love
So
that.
no, I mean that. So like
12-year-old Mariah would be like, oh my God, really?
like I never like it's I love having talks like these.
I knew you would.
No, I
Just
love these conversations because to me you definitely stood out. So it's like, why do you think you stood out? Like why do you think you stand out? Sorry.
Okay. Like
Yeah,
now
today.
I like when I'm in my best, most secure, confident moments, I would say that I feel like I can stand out because I make other people feel comfortable in a room.
Mm,
Because I have felt like I've been the one that's been uncomfortable in a room. And if there was ever someone who made me feel comfortable, I was super grateful to them. But I was also in situations where, you know, didn't have that person. And so now that's what I feel like is my superpower or my like claim to fame because I'm able to say and like scan a room and I can look out and be like, okay, this person, like if they're a friend of a friend or they're, new to this group or anything like that, I feel like I can have a superpower and like look at people, read them, and assume for better or for worse sometimes like oh they might be a little less comfortable so I'm going to try my best to make them comfortable.
mm,
I feel like that's what I would have to say that I stand out and I think that manifests itself in like a like hopefully bringing like light into a room if I had to pinpoint it, but
hmm
it's a good question.
hmm.
What would you say yours would be now?
Before I answer that, you
Mm-hmm.
definitely do bring light into a room.
Thank you.
Um,
It's not paid, I swear.
that's absolutely true. I had to say that. I don't know exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I read people pretty well,
Mm. Yeah.
and I'm able to. I think my emotional intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
I think, makes me unique. I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I think emotional intelligence sets people so far apart from others of like, oh, like that self-awareness, that ability to read a room, to read yourself, like know what you need to succeed and know the people around you what they also need
That
to
yeah, that's
succeed.
exactly what I'm speaking to.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I will give you that confidence and say I see that in you as well.
I appreciate that. It's like people can remember directions and like remember like numbers well. Like I remember what people do and say and act and how they
Mm,
feel well.
yeah.
Like I'd be like, okay, like that was weird for her.
Mm-hmm.
Like last time someone said something similar, she didn't react like that. Like,
I
and
see.
it would be locked in my brain
Yeah.
subconsciously. And then when it
Mm-hmm.
happens again, I'm like, no, that was weird. Like that's new.
Yeah,
Like, my
yeah,
brain would tell me that's new.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so like other people don't pay attention to stuff like that. You
Mm,
know, so she just fidgeted a little bit different that time. Like
mm-hmm.
her legs are crossed before now. Last time they were open. Like those are kind of things that stay in my head.
Yeah. Yeah. So like kind of like would you say seeking out patterns or like higher level
Yes,
stuff,
but
right?
like socially,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like when it comes to
Not a
people,
puzzle. No.
like no, I'm terrible at puzzles.
I'm
Actually,
breaking out a crossword right now.
oh my gosh.
That's
Yeah,
funny.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. That's really interesting to think about. I feel like I'm also on that same track. Like I cannot for the
Hmm.
life of me like remember certain details or like I'll read a book and then like 2 weeks later I'm like, what was that author? What was the title? Like the small finite pieces of information, they do not stick, but like you tell me a story or like you
Like
tell me something that's
concepts.
important to
Yeah.
you, yeah, or like body language, like picking up on people definitely is where I excel in more and like building those relationships is
Hmm.
something that's more important to me. So I think it work like your mind and your brain knows it's like, oh, like I enjoy getting to know people. So like that kind of knowledge, that kind of memory is what sticks out to
Hmm.
me and I remember better because I know I enjoy it.
Yeah.
So it's super interesting to kind of like walk down that road.
Yeah.
Um, okay, another question for you.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about like fitting in and fitting out for various reasons, or standing out, I guess it would be. What do you think, like what were the reasons growing up other than like moving around that you felt like you stood out in? Can you give us like more into your background there?
So I grew up in the suburbs mostly,
Mm-hmm.
and there's not a lot of black kids out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always pretty smart.
Yeah.
And I put smart in quotes because I think it just depends on how you like, evaluate someone's smartness,
Mm-hmm.
or intelligence. But I was in a lot of honors AP classes,
Mm-hmm.
and so most of those classes people didn't look like me,
Mm.
right? But then I go to play sports, and my travel like basketball team or football team, and I didn't talk like or sound like the other kids I was playing with that did look like
Mm.
me.
Gotcha.
Um, and I've always been that annoying kid that asks a ton of questions. Like I ask a ton of questions, and I've never been quiet.
Right.
Like I've never been a quiet kid. I've always been like, that doesn't make sense. I've never been like a bystander,
Yeah.
and as a result, I just didn't really fit in, and I was always like yearning to.
Mm.
So, but just how I made up, I never, I wasn't like created to fit in.
Mm-hmm.
But growing up, it was hard to like grasp that concept as a positive because it was like a big negative at the time. Like middle
Yeah.
school, high school, it was not hidden, it was not solid.
Yeah. I mean, it's all you want as a
You know what
kid,
I
right?
mean?
Like it's so weird. It's a weird switch where it's like, oh, you want all you want is to fit in and you feel like you stand out so much. And then like a switch in adulthood happens where it's like, oh no, it's cool to stand out, like have your own
Exactly,
thing. And it's
exactly.
like a bad thing to fit in and conform. So it's so weird how like all that happens.
And it's weird when you can relate to a bunch of people because you're not in one particular group. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're on like the outskirts of all of them. So
Right.
you have a lot of
Yeah.
acquaintances,
Mm-hmm.
but not many like people that's your group of people. And so
I
that's what I
see.
dealt with a lot. Because
Yeah.
I can relate to a ton of people, even today.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but to get really close knit requires me to understand my own narrative and
Mm-hmm.
understand like why I'm different, what I've been through, and be able to tell my story. Back then, I couldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yeah.
was always flowing with the water of who I
Like
was
code
with.
switching.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I got like aggressively
Mm-hmm.
to a point where I'm like who was Colton? You
Mm.
know what I mean?
Yeah. Did you like when do you think you're aware of when you started to figure out who Colton was?
I got the Butler.
Yeah,
Yeah,
college.
yeah,
Okay. I would say a similar thing for myself as
100%.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Was it like the people there that, because for me, it was like I had really solid friendships growing up, like core four best friends,
Yeah, that's cool.
but it wasn't until I got to college that I really got confident in myself.
Mm,
And that was from directly from one friend.
really?
Yes, like I can pinpoint it. Yeah,
I want
just
to hear about that.
right.
Yeah.
It was mostly I can't for the life of me still place why, but I think she was a teammate and a best friend. She was such a great enabler in all the best ways possible.
Mm,
So like she was so carefree in a way that balanced my obsession or my um anxiety around like what people thought of me. And so because of our friendship and being like attached to the hip, she kind of brought me out of my shell and made me more confident. And that was in like every sector of my life, whether it was like with friends, with rowing, with academics, with my personality, with guys, like going out, like everything. Because we were so great together,
that's awesome.
it just like brought out the most confident version of
That's
myself.
awesome.
Yeah. So it was like, and I know exactly it was like, and I could feel it in the moment. I was like, oh my God, like I'm becoming such a better person of my like a version of myself. And I tell her like that. And I'm like, I'm so thankful to you for that reason. And sure, there was a bunch of other friends who were also like really, really aiding that process, but it wasn't, I don't think it would have been as much of a churn if it hadn't been for that friendship.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think some people really are meant to shake your life up a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
I
do
agree.
believe that. Mm,
Who were those shakers for you, would you say?
I had a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a lot.
That's a good
So,
problem to
yeah,
have.
I had a lot of people who impacted me. I mean, I appreciate people.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I see, for instance, you spoke about how you appreciate when people like you like to make other people feel comfortable
Mm-hmm.
because you know what it's like to be in a space and not be. I very much I felt that because I
Mm-hmm.
know what it's like to be to not know anybody
Yeah.
and be that kid kind of sitting all by himself.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know that feeling. So I really felt that, and because of that, I appreciate when people go out of their way for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember those people. So many names came into my head when you asked that.
Yeah.
Um, um, I can name one, or I can name a few. Murdoch, he
Mm-hmm.
came and spoke to the Orr Fellowship. He was one
Yeah.
of them. Brian Parks, he was a Orr alumni.
Mm.
Uh, um, one of my best friends passed away when I was in my freshman year of college from back home. His name is
Wow.
Richard. He definitely one of them. Um, my friend Tim, uh, my longest lasting friend since seventh grade. I'll never
Mm-hmm.
forget this. So it was my first time at a new school. It's in Naperville, Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I walked into the lunchroom. It was, oh
Terrifying.
my gosh,
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody. It was packed, like no room. I'm like,
Wow.
dang, like what? So I got my food. I'm like standing in the middle. It's like out of like a nasty classified school survival guide
Oh
type
God.
of scene. It was
Yeah.
like that. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm standing there like
You're like,
and
wait. Oh.
no, and then like Tim did not know this dude at all. He was like, "Hey, like, come sit over here."
Oh God. God bless people like that, right?
And
Yeah.
he had his friend move over, and
Oh.
I sat next to him, and then
Mm.
like we were friends ever since.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. I haven't had that memory. I'm like starting to get like all worked up because I haven't thought about it in a long time.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, like that's the kind of stuff I'm just like, yeah, that's my
It means the world to you,
like
right?
what?
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, for sure. He's one of those guys for sure.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, yeah. But a lot of people don't really know that side of me either. Because
Mm-hmm.
like you mentioned, like I guess on the outside they think, oh, like he feels comfortable.
Mm.
Well, it's like I had to fight. I had to go through a lot.
Yeah.
Like I will be okay sitting by myself in the lunchroom
Mm-hmm.
today.
Now, yeah, yeah.
Because I've done it
Mm-hmm.
so many times, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I think that there's a lot of power in that of like you now having your past and being like, I know the struggle that it was, in seventh grade or whenever to like look at a giant room of people and be like, okay, where do I fit in? Where's my spot? Like something as little as the lunchroom, like it starts to become not as little when you think about that, right? Because it's like the whole school, like all the worries that can go into like one little decision and one friend, just like,
Crazy.
and then you found like your people at Butler as well. And so yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I've been blessed. I just think about it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
that's
for sure.
wonderful.
So Notre Dame,
Mm-hmm. She ended up our sophomore year transferring, which was a lot.
what?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Plot twist.
Yeah, I know, Colton. It was a plot twist at the time
How
as
was that?
well.
Was that a tough adjustment?
Oh, it was
That'd be
probably
tough.
one of the
No
roughest
facts. Yeah,
points of
yeah,
my life.
yeah.
Yeah.
I bet.
Yeah, it was like our fall of sophomore year.
Yeah.
And I had broken my rib about 3 weeks after she like told me she
No.
was leaving the team, which already I was like, oh my God, I was like, how am I gonna get through? Right. Like I'm playing the victim and like being like, oh my God, like this is gonna change my whole life. And then it was a couple months after that then that she was like, I'm leaving the school for her own reasons. And so it was definitely, I mean, it shook my whole
For
world,
sure.
not to be dramatic,
No,
but
for sure.
I was
It did.
I mean, for 2 years, even just like for a year and a half, it was like best friends. And so everything that we did, it was
It was
side by
no
side.
facts. That's like
Yeah.
a breakup
Mm,
almost.
yeah.
So did you were you able to value the relationship while you were in it,
Oh,
or
yeah.
was it after it was like after she left?
I mean, it was like every day I was aware. I was like, oh my God,
This
like
is
we just have
it.
so much fun.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
no quarrels. Like it really,
Close, good word.
yeah, right. I
Yeah,
know it's a
that's
good
nice.
word.
That's good.
Yeah, it really, even like the day to day, like we just would have so much fun with each other that it wasn't ever like a question. And I was super grateful during my time at Notre Dame, like even with it sometimes being tougher and like crying after exams or like crying after practice or whatever,
Mhm.
I still had that gratitude where I was like, even if I'm upset or like sad right now or mad or whatever the emotion I was feeling is like, I know that these days, like every day that passes is one less that I get here.
Mm,
So I still had a lot of
damn, that's deep.
yeah, yeah. I still was very aware of like these are the good times. And I think that is why it hit so hard when my scale, it went from having like 4 years of that great friendship to now it was a year and a half.
Mm.
And so that like when I think that's why the news hit me so hard is because I realized I was like, damn, the time that I already knew was shrinking just got a lot smaller. Right. So yeah, but I was definitely aware of it. And I think other people were too. I think there was, if I'm being honest, I think there was some like envy of others when they'd see us together because it was like we were having such a good time that it didn't matter if like other people were. Like we were doing whatever we thought and like welcoming everyone else to join us, but it was like, damn, like you could just see the happiness.
Facts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
That's deep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I still have, you know, to this day, like some friends that after she had transferred, like picked me up and like kept me going. And for them, I'm so thankful to our friendship because it's just as strong, but for different reasons.
Hmm.
And I think that's what I've come to realize after looking back and being able to recognize like why that hit me so hard along with rowing and injury. Is because it was so monumental to like my confidence and my self-image, that friendship specifically. And then like
Mm.
other friendships did a lot for me in other ways. But it was definitely the confidence piece that really hit. Yeah.
That's good.
I love getting into
I
it
had to
though.
process things. Sorry, I'm just thinking
Hmm.
about it. When I'm listening, I'm not thinking about what I'm gonna say. I'm just
Yeah,
listening,
yeah.
so I'm like thinking about what you're saying. Are you guys still close?
No, I know. Yeah, it's a turn of events. We're not. I think the friendship after she transferred, I think what our friendship meant, and Notre Dame is too close for her. So she had to leave the school for her mental health.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a weird combination of guilt and association by proximation where she can't,
I see what you're saying.
yeah, like untie the,
Yeah,
you
the
know, when it got
angst, all
really
that type of stuff.
bad
Yeah,
for her, those bad feelings. And I think she knows how terrible that also how much it also affected me in a bad way. And so I
mm,
think there's a lot of emotion that I think, and it was never like it was never like, hey, can't be friends anymore. Like it was never any of that. It was just kind of a falling out. Like you're in a different
no,
spot in a different
I know
time.
exactly
And it takes two to maintain
it
like
does,
a long,
especially long distance.
yeah, like a long distance friendship. And so after a while, I just wasn't really feeling that reciprocation.
Yeah,
And I would have to say it's one of the things that is definitely I resent it a bit because I wish we were still as close as
for
we were.
sure, for sure.
Um,
Yeah, I know this. Yeah.
yeah. And I think like maybe years down the road, or even if I like called her up like right now and I was like, I need your help, I know I could lean on her, but we don't have that same like connection or that we're just not up to date with each other the same way, you know?
Mm, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I've gone through things similar
Mm-hmm.
through transitioning out of schools
Yeah.
because there is something to say about friends that you maintain without proximity.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
Like when it
So much
doesn't
to be
make
said.
sense,
Yeah.
like it doesn't need to, like it's not easy. Like
Mm-hmm.
those friends that you maintain, because I
Yeah.
moved around and friends fall off like flies, G.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I expect it. So as a result, I don't really get too invested too quick in people unless
Mm.
like it's no longer easy.
Interesting. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like people in our fellowship, they talked to me because we were in the same, we had monthly meeting together.
Mm-hmm.
We worked at the same company.
Yeah.
But like when I leave the company, now what?
Mm.
Like, do you
Right.
still care, or is it just because you were in my face?
Mm-hmm. Like it was convenient to be
The
friends.
convenience, that's the
Yeah.
perfect word for it.
Mm-hmm. That is super interesting. And it definitely hits because I can say I've definitely had friends that have like I've lost those friendships, but it's been I think it was like when I think about friends who that's been it was like friends who I had when I was younger, so like
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
7 or 10 whatever, and they mostly fell off because like I stopped swimming when I was younger, and so like I just didn't
Are
see
you
each other
still?
in
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I swam competitively from like 5 to 13.
Hmm.
So that was a big chunk of my life. And so like I can think of one friend, Tatum, who we just like didn't have cell phones because we were 7 and like didn't have a way to stay in touch. So now I just don't have those things. So like that I can probably count on one hand of like the friends that I've actually lost touch with. Like who are really, really close friends and like super monumental for my life. And it would be probably Tatum, that friend from swimming. Um, Carrie, who was the one who transferred. Um, and truly, I think that would probably be where the list ends. Like I struggle with letting friends go, honestly. And I am the opposite of you where I don't expect it. And if it happens, it almost hurts me more because I'm like, why did this friendship fall off? Now, that's not meaning to say like it's just unrealistic to be able to maintain like daily or weekly conversations with some of your closest people, but I have my people who I am staying in touch with, who like I know I could text and update and be like, oh my God, I miss you. Like, let's plan a trip. And they'd be like, I'm absolutely down. Like friendships where I have that reciprocity of them being as invested as I am in them. And so I can relate and see that expecting friends to be there versus not, and like how we both deal with them when they don't show up or when you lose that friendship. I think it's a really fine point, and I know that because I haven't gone through it a lot, it makes it tough for me. And I'm sure, like, I'm curious to hear maybe your opinion on that if like it gets easier the more you do it. Because I know you said you had to say bye to a lot of friends who like moving around now just weren't going to be, conveniently next to you.
Adult life is different
Uh-huh.
because you control a lot more.
Yeah.
Like the first couple years, like the Orr Fellowship creates a community for you. But like once the Orr Fellowship is over, you really get to decide who you hang out with and who your people are. So I think it's tough for me to say it gets easier because you get more and more control of your life as you get older.
That's a good point.
And as but then it makes the investment that you put in heavier
Mm,
and then so when you don't get that investment back, it makes it more hurtful.
mm,
You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
you're at Notre Dame. I mean, like you're at school,
Hmm.
right? But when you're in Indy, the oil fellowship's over, you can go anywhere.
Right.
You can talk to anybody.
Yeah.
You can go on any trip you want to. You can call anybody.
Hmm.
So for those folks that you do put time into, you mean it. So when you
Hmm.
don't get it back, it hurts more,
Yeah.
rather than you're talking to somebody in the oil fellowship. It's
Hmm.
like, well, like this is my occupation. So I'm naturally in their presence is convenient.
Yeah.
So it's not as much risk. The older
Hmm.
you get, the more risk is on the table. So
Yeah.
even though I've been through it a lot more, even as I've gotten older, I've had to become more wise in how
Hmm.
I set my expectations with people.
Mm.
Because I could think I'm tough, quote unquote, emotionally and can take it. But I learned that not really, because as
Yeah.
I get older,
Hmm.
I put more into it. That hour when you're in college is a different hour
Yeah.
when you're 2 years out.
Hmm.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Feeling that.
You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? It's
Totally.
different.
Uh-huh.
So like it has more weight. So
Hmm.
it depends. I think what happens is I think you move on faster, but I
Mm.
think it hurts though.
Mm. Yeah. It's a great distinction. I haven't thought about it in that light before. And I think I'll probably
It
carry
doesn't,
that with
bro. You know
me.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I really because like you don't like the whole idea like the weight doesn't get lighter, you get stronger. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying?
Oh my God,
So
that's
it's
so timely. Yeah, yeah.
like things don't hurt me less. I
Mm,
just kind of eat it a lot better.
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
oh, okay, I'm cool now.
Yeah. That's actually I say timely because last night we had our monthly meeting and
Mhm.
so Crystal she showed a video from I don't know if it's the head coach or assistant coach, someone at Duke for the women's basketball team and the whole video is about how things don't get easier, you just get better at handling hard.
Exactly.
And so like exactly what you're saying. And I was like, yeah, that's true. I was like, can't contend
It's
that.
true.
Yeah, yeah. Um, that makes a ton of sense. And I know that so you were 1 year ahead of me in the Orr Fellowship, and so now you've graduated from the program. And that is something that's very top of mind for me because now I'm getting to the point where it's like, oh, people are starting to move around and leave Indianapolis or talk about leaving Indianapolis or talk about, maybe leaving the fellowship or switching jobs and all this, all these conversations that weren't as prevalent to me about like a year ago because we were
You
in the
started,
fellowship and
yeah.
starting and just graduated college. And so it's very timely that you bring that up in that processing how much someone is investing in you versus how much you're investing in them and like how it doesn't get easier, you just handle it better speaks a lot to me. And I know that personally, um, having to protect my time is something that I have to be super aware of and give my time to people that are also giving me their time.
I learned this year. Uh, and my mom helped me out a lot with this concept. Uh, so if you when you so I use it with my like I call them my young bulls, my little homies that are
Mm.
at like IU and Purdue. They're my fraternity, and
Yeah.
so I look after them. We do stuff together. And I used to go to their campus a lot and
Mm.
do like hot practice, like march practice, in our fraternity. That's like how it's like similar to like a it's called strolling.
Okay.
Uh, and that's how we show enthusiasm through movement
Mm-hmm.
for our fraternity. Um, and there's like certain ways to do it. So I go down there, hang out with them, teach them how to do stuff, talk about life,
Mm-hmm.
eat, whatnot. And a few times they would like come late or not value my time
Mm.
or like not pay attention, have to leave early.
Yeah.
And I would get very frustrated. And I'm like, I don't want to go down there no more. Like
Mm.
they're not even going to use what I teach them in their daily life. So I can teach anybody else. It's wasting my time. Um, and I got really I started to regret helping them.
Mm.
And when my mom helped me garden and I later start to apply it to my life is that the beauty is in the choice of giving. Now, like what fruit comes from that giving
Mm.
is not on you.
Yeah.
Like the giving in itself is the motion,
Mm.
and then what happens after that is like that's not on you anymore.
Yeah, that's someone else's
You know
choice.
what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
I think it's a balance between being okay with if you're gonna give whatever this is, money, time, are you comfortable with like the various amount of outcomes? Otherwise, it's not
Mm.
good. So if you're only giving for a certain result, the place in which you're giving from isn't as genuine as and as safe as you may want it
Mm-hmm.
because it leaves you vulnerable to being hurt.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
for instance, I don't care where this podcast goes.
Yeah.
Like I don't care if anyone sees it.
It's going nowhere. No,
But
I'm
like
kidding.
I wouldn't mind that.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, because I'm here for our conversation.
Yeah.
So when it comes to relationships, that's kind of how I see it. So I don't get hurt as much because I gave what I gave because I wanted to, and I
Mm.
had it to give. But there's balance to it. So it's like you have to think to yourself, what's the line that you're no longer okay with giving,
Mm.
and nothing happens.
Yeah.
Like what is that line for you?
Mm.
You know?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, that makes a lot of sense. And your mother is a smart woman.
She really is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Which I think that that concept is something that is so overlooked, I feel like, or even just like not talked about of um like giving to when you give, you have to be okay with all the outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
Because I definitely think of like I can we can talk about like, oh, you're just like donating $5, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
if you're donating because you want to be on like a message board or whatever, like and say the message board pops up and it's anonymous, it's like, oh, now your act of giving is tainted
Mm-hmm.
because you weren't okay with that
Exactly.
outcome or like the
Exactly.
motivation. And not that either one is right or wrong, but I think it's just the acknowledgement there of like,
Exactly.
that's something that you have to be okay with. And
Mm-hmm.
I think so, talking about relationships and time where it's so valuable and like finite, that's where that message I think can hit home for a lot of people because there's always going to be stuff to do. There's always going to be like things that you can invest your time into or like something that you could do for yourself or for other people. And so being proactively intentional about giving and what you're giving that time to or money to or whatever like service to and who you're giving it to is super important. So I love
Very.
that
Mm-hmm.
distinction. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that.
I definitely acknowledge too. It's something that I know I have to get better at
Mm-hmm.
because I am an optimist first. And so, like, trying to always, if I give my time and effort or service, whatever, I want the best outcome. And
Yeah.
if I don't get it, I know I get disappointed.
Yeah.
So, in an act of protecting my time and vulnerability and mental space, I know that I definitely need like hearing you talk, I was like, oh, that's an area of improvement that I'm aware of
For sure.
for sure.
And I battle with being on the pessimist side,
Mm-hmm.
but I guess not. But I've been disappointed a lot growing up, so I
Mm.
guess I'm at the point where I'm like, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna hope for the best, pray for the best, but like be okay for the worst case scenario.
Right. Yeah.
I don't like being sucker punched.
Oh, you don't? That's how we end this episode now.
Like I don't like not knowing what's coming.
Yeah.
I'd rather see it.
Hmm.
That would suck. I'd be okay. All right, let's do it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. It's great self-awareness.
That's just how I process things. And some
Hmm.
people will go like, well, like don't talk about the bad stuff. Like
Yeah.
just focus on the good.
Hmm.
I'm like, nah, I'd rather know it. I'd rather at least address it. That's just
Yeah.
my
Yeah, that's how you
Colton's.
operate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Goes back into that like self-awareness. Um, and so, okay, so as we're talking about like time management and where you give your time,
Hmm.
I know that obviously one of the ventures that you have explored or that you're currently exploring and succeeding at has been both your company, your brand ColMonet and real estate. So how would you say like what we've been talking about like time management and where you're giving your time, like how have you felt handling both of those or balancing both of those alongside your traditional 9 to 5 and like relationships or personal life?
Yeah. The past few months, ColMonet has taken a back seat.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been on pause for a while. Um, and it's funny because Lauren, the co-founder, Big Sis, is actually on her way up to Indianapolis today.
Oh, no way.
And we're gonna get back in the lab and get back going.
Oh,
So
that's really
it's funny how God works.
exciting.
So that's happening today.
Okay.
It's been on pause for a while, so it's been really focusing on this real estate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm a manager now, so being a solution architect and really working with the C-suite at my company and really driving this startup in the Salesforce ecosystem has been a lot of my time and networking
Yeah.
intentionally.
Yeah.
That's taken up a lot of my time. So
Mm-hmm.
the real estate stuff, if I put it in order, I would say my range 21 job, the networking that I do, and then the real estate stuff.
Mm. Okay.
And that's a lot right there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it takes
Yeah.
a
And then
lot.
it's yeah, and then life's
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
On top of that,
Yeah.
basically
Like
nothing.
personal stuff, yeah.
Yeah. Networking, do you mean like through like events and stuff at this?
Events, coffees. I
Yeah.
have like 3 or 4 coffee chats a week,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and then lunches,
So
and
similar
then
kind of like
events.
to the obligations that of like
Oh, it's like
always.
that, except more intense though.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the thing
Mm.
is, because I know my own narrative, I'm able to connect so much better. Like I wouldn't be able to have this level of conversation
Yeah.
at the beginning of the year.
Mm. Oh, interesting. Okay.
No. Because there's this quote, it's like you only meet someone as deep as you met yourself.
Ooh, I like that.
Um, and because I've been looking at myself in the mirror a lot,
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to see other people better
Mm. Yeah.
and connect with other people better
Yeah.
because I can let more of them in without
Mm.
me changing.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Because I'm more
really,
comfortable. Like,
yeah.
yeah, like give me all what you got because I can stand in this and
Mm-hmm.
still be me
Mm.
and give back and connect
Yeah,
and
yeah.
listen. I'm comfortable with silence.
Mm-hmm.
Like stuff that it takes it takes some wisdom to get to and like working that muscle of having those deeper conversations. And I've been doing that.
Mm. That work or like that looking in the mirror, what does that look like for you? Is it like meditation? Is it just like sitting in silence for a bit? Or is it like reading, listening to podcasts? What are you
I
thinking?
listen to a lot of sermons
Mm.
and podcasts. TD Jakes is a big fan of mine. He's a pastor on YouTube and whatnot. Brian Parks actually introduced me to him.
Mm. Okay.
Um, and my brain's always going too.
Yeah.
So I think when I work out, when I shower, just throughout the day, if I'm by myself, I'm thinking,
Mm-hmm.
especially if something just happened, I'm very self-reflective. And it doesn't take me that long to learn where I messed up.
Mm.
Like I can do it and then walk away. I'm like, ah.
Like I know what I said
You
that
know,
I should
right?
have done.
No,
Yeah.
exactly. Like when we leave, I'll probably
Uh,
be like, man, I should have said this, and this. I probably
oh
should
my
have
God.
asked this.
You
Like
can
that's
send me voice recordings
oh
and I'll
my
play them
gosh. Right?
retrospectively. That's what's so fun about this. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So you mentioned that you were pretty self-reflective as
mm,
well. What do you do to kind of get into that mode?
yeah, I feel like honestly through my podcast, like these
I
types of
could tell this is your thing.
conversations. Oh
I'm
yeah,
liking this.
I
I
love
like
it.
seeing you like in this mode.
Isn't it
Yeah, for
fun?
sure. Yeah,
Right?
that's good. Yeah.
I like seeing you this mode too.
Yeah.
So I feel like my podcast, and that's part of the reason I started it, was like because
Mm.
I wanted something to continually motivate me
Oh, that's
to like
good.
dive deep.
That's good.
Hmm.
That's good. I like
Yeah,
that a lot.
yeah. So that's why I started it. And it's definitely because I struggled with opening up and being vulnerable. So that was like the motivation was kind of two pillars. And that's why like I always say learn to listen, like the little tagline
I love
is
it.
it's like to encourage empathy and empower through or encourage vulnerability and empower through empathy. Because
Yeah.
like
Oh
that's what
my
I'm trying
gosh,
to
that's
do.
good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's honestly when I speak to emotional intelligence, I think my skill is listening
Mm-hmm. I agree.
because not many people know how to do it well. And
Mm-hmm.
then the next step in listening is comprehending. And then the
Yeah.
next step is like, what action do you take after that?
Yeah.
So now you can listen. It's like, what did that mean?
Yeah.
What didn't they say?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
There's a lot in listening.
Yeah. And I think too, like I'll really try to push myself to like after I listen to someone or like I hear a perspective, whether or not it's similar to mine, I'll try
Mm,
and interpret like their perspective or their opinion and how it relates to me. So
mm,
like if I'm listening to a podcast, say like it's one of my favorite is Armchair Expert. It's great. It's with Dax Shepard and Monica Padman, but they have a lot of like celebrities, experts, conspiracy artists like basically like they have a bunch of different arms that they kind of touch and so like I'll listen to those and even if it's like humor based or like psychology based I'll kind of take what they're saying and try and apply it to myself and I feel like that's where I do a lot of that work and like reflection. I also just naturally like through this nonprofit that I work with Athletes for Hope they're all about using your platform and your story to create a community. And so through my work with them, it also lends very well to like reflection. But I definitely think through like podcasting and a little bit of like journaling is how I find
mm.
those moments of reflection because I feel like I am like go, 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 go. And so kind of relate to where it's like I'm alone and I'm just like trying to decompress or relax after the day. It's like, oh, like that really stuck out to me or like this is what I learned or this perspective was like an interesting one to hear, you know.
That's good.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, it's I also want to say I really respect you being honest and open and honest about ColMonet kind of taking a backseat and I relate to it because I know we were talking about just me starting the podcast and how long I've been doing it and I told you like oh the podcast had to take like a backseat for a year just
So,
because like
you know,
other things pop up. Um so what are you most excited for like Colmonet to kind of like kickstart this new round? Your sister's coming into town.
yeah.
If you could give like a background too of just like high level where you started it because I realized we started talking. I
Yeah,
didn't even explain
yeah,
what it is,
yeah.
which I do sometimes
Yeah,
because
for
I get into
sure.
it.
So ColMonet actually started as More Than Beauty.
Really?
Um, and Lauren started that by herself.
Hmm.
And she started it as like a namesake and like a letter to herself,
Mm,
um, to love herself because
mm,
she founded More Than Beauty, which was a personal care products business to remind herself, uh, to love herself through like all the different aspects of life, like
yeah.
in day to day.
Hmm.
Um, Once COVID hit, uh, I was a senior in college and I was pretty idle. She was working on the labeling for the
Hmm.
moisturizer.
Yeah.
And she said, "Hey, Colton, do you want to help with these labels?" I'm like, "Sure." I started helping her with the label designs. She was working with another friend of hers, and it kind of just fell into place perfectly.
Mm.
And for More Than Beauty, we went to go file for the LLC, and the name was taken.
Uh,
And we were like, "Hmm." We
have to pivot.
right? So we went back to the drawing board, and ColMonet was created, and that name is a mixture of my name Colton and her middle name Monet.
Mm,
So ColMonet is a mixture of our two names. And we chose that because of how genuine our relationship is.
Mhm.
She's like my best friend for real. And
I love
so
that.
we want to make sure like the products that we have is really based in love and that we do business the right way.
Mm,
And we lead with empathy
yeah.
and we put out quality products that can remind people to love on themselves. Every day is a new day, and you don't have to be perfect. So like a lot of the things that the hustlers and the grinders like really need, I want ColMonet to be like one of the first personal care products businesses that can bring loving themselves from the inside out to personal
Mm,
care products. Because
yeah.
like today it's all about how you look,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
But I want like ColMonet products to make you look and feel excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Like through the
Yeah.
different partnerships that we have, through the quality of our products, and throughout the different messaging that we have.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, our body wash that we're going to come out with, um, that's been sitting dormant for a while. Super excited to get that out. So,
Mm-hmm.
something to be excited about is this body wash.
Yeah.
Um, it's going to be titled like "I Am," and it's going to
Mm,
have like a blank space,
that's
and we're
cool.
going to send out like Sharpies with it, so you're going to be able to
Mm,
write in your affirmation on your body wash.
yeah.
And so when you get in the
That's
shower,
sick.
which is a
Yeah.
very reflective time for people, especially
Mm-hmm.
the hustlers who don't sit down, when they shower, you kind of have to sit still.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they reach for this nice smelling, like very smooth body wash, you can read it and get that affirmation. So
Mm-hmm.
you can think about that when you're in the shower,
Yeah.
as you're like loving on yourself. Because when you
Mm-hmm.
put moisturizer on, when you're washing yourself, it's a loving action.
Yeah.
But people don't see it that way.
Mm,
So we're reframing how people see that those few seconds of the day, like
yeah.
you love you right now.
Mm. Like you're doing something
This is for
proactive for
you.
you.
And
Yeah.
the people who don't do that need that in their schedule
Mm,
because I know I do,
yeah.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that's Como in a nutshell and
Yeah.
what I'm excited for.
That's really, I love, like, I can tell your background's in marketing, like, and you're good at sales too. Like, I
Appreciate
can
it.
tell the intentionality behind the brand, and I wanted you to kind of speak to that because I remember, when you first told me about it, and I could see like the mission, the brand story or the brand mission really coming to life with like the actual product development. And I think like my typical 9 to 5 job with Malomo, I see that a lot. And like our customers is like, that's what is important to people
Mhm.
now because we've had like a lack of it, honestly. And so if someone can like have an attachment to something that they're doing every day, like a ritual and like putting your moisturizer on or taking your shower, and that becomes something that is a positive reinforcer for their
Exactly.
feelings or their emotions or their well-being, it is like a cyclical thing, right?
Hmm.
Because it's habit formation, you're
Hmm.
attaching
Hmm. Hmm.
your moisturizer, showering routine, whatever it is,
Hmm.
to those affirmations.
Hmm.
And I love that like spin on it of putting the labels on with the Sharpie because I think that's something that's so cool that you're putting it back in the consumer's hands of being like, you know yourself best. Now, like, we're giving you the mechanism to reinforce those affirmations, but like, you decide what you need to
Exactly.
do.
Exactly.
That's really cool.
I'm glad you like it.
I'm excited to
I'm
try
glad you like it.
it.
I think the body wash is gonna what gets us on the map.
Yeah.
And then they're gonna see the moisturizer, they're gonna see the quality of it. And
Mhm.
So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
huge. We'll have to link you guys
I appreciate that. That'd
on
be
the
awesome.
episode description.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
The real estate side has been a struggle too. Coleman hasn't really been a struggle, but the real estate side has been a struggle with balancing the Airbnb with like
Hmm.
event slash co-working space
Yeah.
and how to make that make sense in terms of the split. Um, and getting people to buy into the idea of using a house
Mhm.
as a co-working or event space. Like
Yeah.
that's almost like a new idea in India. Because there's actually a lot of event spaces in
Yeah.
Indianapolis.
I've
There is.
noticed, honestly.
Um, but they're very like stoic and like
Mm. They're a little bit colder.
they're
Like
colder.
they're huge industrial buildings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So getting companies to buy into like the house has been harder than I expected. But I
Hmm.
also can frankly say I haven't put enough effort into it either.
Mm.
Like, there's a lot more stones to unturn.
Right. I mean, of the problems to have, like, I guess then this is the optimist coming through.
Yeah.
Like having more certain stones to turn in the future rather than having turned
All of them. Oh, I'll be
over.
sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm
He's like,
definitely.
don't talk to me.
Yeah, I'll be sad about that. No,
Yeah.
so I mean, it's looking good, you know.
Hmm. Yeah.
I've been blessed to be able to work with the Orr Fellowship. Shout out to Alyssa, Gaudens. She's been fantastic to work with. Excited to work with Steven.
Mhm. Yeah.
So excited to make a difference, have Orr Fellowship, have some more intimate spaces to meet because the fellowship needs it.
Hmm.
Because not to knock on any of the co-working spaces that are like industrial based, but that just reminds people of work.
Yeah,
It's not the
it's not
same.
homey.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's hard to get intimate
Hmm.
in an actual co-working space.
Yeah.
So, because it really does remind me of like study rooms at Butler or
Hmm.
IUPUI or
Yeah.
any of the schools around here
Hmm.
or Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So I do think that it could create a different. It could have fellows leading with a different feeling.
Hmm. Yeah. I think that's where I think that's a unforeseen repercussion of COVID is like a lot of people are just like in every interaction and every product you're buying, like in every person that you're talking to, we just crave that warmth these days because it got
Yeah,
taken away from us. So I think
yeah.
there's a lot to be said about having a co-working space that is a home.
It's different.
Yeah, because you're just comfortable.
Have you felt comfortable at the space when you guys use it?
Oh yeah, especially for our team, which is the DEI team, like
Mhm.
a part of the battle, right, is just making people feel comfortable. And so for us, I know it's been super helpful.
Nice.
Because like we all just like it's you know, like it's literally just sitting around in a house and you're
Right.
all together. Like
Yeah.
there's no, it isn't if someone's like presenting or talking, they're not like in front of like 30 people like in a U like a
Yeah.
horseshoe shape with tables, right? Like
It's different.
they're just, like people are on couches or like sitting on the ground. Like they're just more comfortable, I think. And I think that lends itself better, at least for the first years who
Mm.
are able, like, who are new to the fellowship and are able to open up a little bit. Hopefully, like, what we're saying also is reinforcing that comfortability factor. But I think the ambiance and the environment that you're doing so also plays a role.
It
And I know
does.
that last year we had our meetings at Liz Gibbons's house.
Yes.
And so, like, the same, which I was really thankful for. And so I'm happy that we have a house,
Something else.
yeah,
Yeah.
that
It's
that
used for that.
yeah, and it
And
translates over.
hmm
So it works really well for our team
I'm glad you like it.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Hmm. Yeah. But I love kind of hearing about the things that you're excited for, the struggles, the successes. Like that's why I feel like sitting down and doing this podcast is always so fun. But I know we're rounding out on about an hour if we're not over. Oh yeah, we're a little over. Um, but this has been so fun and I really appreciate you
Of
coming
course. I
on.
appreciate you having me.
Yeah, I'm
You're great. You're really good. You're like really good at this.
thank you.
No,
Thank you.
seriously.
I have a couple in my back pocket
Yeah.
that I love. So if you saw me at the first episode, I'm not sure you'd be saying the
Yeah.
same thing.
That's the beauty of it though.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
You can kind of hear like the way I feel, or I think at least like the way I've developed with these conversations and been like way more comfortable with myself and with other people. So I very much appreciate
I
that
can feel
compliment.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
And
what's
you
up.
crushed it
That's
too.
what's up. I appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
of
yeah,
course.
yeah.
Yeah, this has been fun. We'll have to have you back on when the body wash is launched
Oh,
and get your
please. I'd appreciate that.
perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
Yeah.